If bread has ever made you feel like your body is broken or like you just can't handle wheat anymore, I want to offer a different possibility. What if your body isn't the problem? What if what we're calling wheat today isn't the same thing our bodies learn to recognize? For a long time, I assumed that discomfort around bread meant intolerance, that something in me wasn't working properly. But the more I learned about how flour is made now, the more I realized maybe it wasn't my body that changed, maybe it was the food. So today I want to welcome you into my kitchen as I mill some flour and make some delicious recipes for my family while we chat about what modern wheat is doing to our health. Wheat isn't just starch, it isn't just gluten. A wheat kernel is a complete seed designed to nourish and sustain life. It has three main parts: the bran, which is the outer layer, and it has fiber and minerals, and it slows digestion. The germ is the living core, the seed. That is where the oils, the vitamins, and enzymes are found. This is the part that allows the seed to grow. And the endosperm is the energy, mostly starch and protein. These three parts were designed to work together in our flour. Wheat was never meant to be eaten in pieces, it was meant to be eaten whole. For most of human history, wheat was milled shortly before use, cooked, baked, shared, and eaten. Not stored for months, not stripped down for shelf stability, just food. So why don't we eat wheat that way anymore? The answer is actually very simple: shelf life. The oils in the germ go rancid. Whole flour doesn't sit on a shelf for months or years. By removing the bran and the germ, companies were able to create flour that was cheap, stable, and easy to transport and store. And to be clear, this wasn't done to harm people. It was done for convenience. But when you remove the parts of wheat that slow digestion, that provide minerals, that signal nourishment to the body, you change how the body experiences it. Modern flour is fast. It's stripped of structure, it's aged and oxidized, and it arrives in the body very differently than wheat ever did before. And people will ask, why not just buy whole wheat flour? And that's a fair question. Even 100% whole wheat flour from the store is usually milled months before you use it, which means the natural oils and enzymes have already started to break down. Fresh milled flour is used before that happens, and that's really the difference. When food loses its structure, the body doesn't always know how to interact with it calmly. So instead of asking, why can't our body handle this? Maybe we should be asking, would our bodies even recognize this as food? And this is where I want to say something boldly but carefully. Maybe you're not gluten intolerant. Maybe you're just intolerant to dead flour. Now, I want to pause here and be very clear. I am not talking about people with celiac disease. I'm not talking about medically diagnosed gluten intolerance or wheat allergy. What I am talking about is the large group of people who never historically had an issue with wheat, but struggle with modern flour as it exists today. This is about processing, not denying real medical conditions. This is also why so many people feel better when they switch to sourdough. Fermentation does help. It breaks down food, it reduces anti-nutrients, it makes bread feel gentle for many people, and that makes sense, but fermentation can only work with what it's given. Most sourdough today is still made with modern, highly refined flour. So while fermentation helps, it can't put nutrients back into something that was already stripped. It's not either or, it is layers of support. Whole flour first, and then fermentation on top of that, if you want the extra digestibility. And you're gonna see me making some strawberry shortcake with einkorn berries, as well as a sandwich loaf, which I'm using hard white wheat for. And I'm not doing sourdough. I'm actually using some yeast for this bread, and that's something that I feel comfortable with when I am milling my flour and using it within minutes of milling it. I'm okay with doing a yeast bread rather than doing sourdough because it is still so nutrient dense, and the Nutrients are so available, but there is another layer that often gets overlooked. Wheat is one of the crops most commonly treated with glyphosate, often sprayed right before harvest to speed drying. Glyphosate is a weed killer and incredibly toxic to the human body. So when people react to modern wheat, it isn't always just the gluten. Sometimes it's what's on the wheat. That is why organic wheat berries matter, not because they're trendy, not because they're perfect, but because they remove one more variable. When we're trying to understand how our bodies respond to food, fewer variables matter. So fresh milled flour, it keeps the bran, it keeps the germ, it keeps the original structure intact. It hasn't been aged or oxidized, it hasn't been engineered for a long shelf life, and because of that, it doesn't last the same way. Fresh flour and fresh bread aren't meant to sit on a shelf for weeks or months. That's actually the point. Food that's alive and intact has a shorter window because it hasn't been stabilized for storage. Fresh milled bread is meant to be eaten, shared, or frozen, not stored indefinitely. That's one of the reasons I mill and bake at home, not because it's perfect, but because these foods don't fit well into long shelf lives. I also want to acknowledge something important. There is a barrier to entry here. Most people don't know this information. Most people don't know where to buy wheat berries, and most people don't know how to cook with fresh milled flour, because this isn't really how our generation was raised, and that matters. So let me be honest about time. Once you have the grain, milling flour takes me about 2 minutes. It just happens right before I cook or bake. The bigger hurdle is tools. I save for my mill over time. I wanted to do this years before I had one, and you don't need an expensive electric mill to start. There are hand crank mills that clamp to the counter that are much more affordable, and that's how wheat was milled for generations. And I actually do want to get one of those hand cranked mills. And I want to show you something I'm making this week that isn't fresh milled flour. These are Einkorn muffins for my son. I haven't converted this recipe to fresh milled yet, and because it's for an event, I want it to turn out exactly how I know it will. This is part of real life. For me, organic Einkorn is the only pre-milled flour I'm comfortable using occasionally. And it is still missing the germ oils and full structure, but it's gentler than modern wheat, and I know how my body responds to it. And of course, Mardi Gras colors, because it is Mardi Gras season here. But I just wanted to say wellness isn't about doing everything perfectly. It's about understanding what supports your body and choosing intentionally when you can. This can feel like something only ultra crunchy people do, but this is actually how wheat was always prepared until we asked for more and more convenience. And convenience isn't bad, it just changed the food, therefore changing our health. And I also want to say this clearly: if you have no interest in milling your own flour, or you don't have the time, space, or resources, that's okay. This doesn't have to be all or nothing. A lot of local bakeries, farmers markets, and health food stores are making this kind of bread available. In my area, it hasn't quite caught on, but if you live closer to a bigger metropolitan area, I have seen it popping up and becoming more popular. You'll usually find it in the refrigerated or frozen section, not sitting on a shelf, because like we said, it's alive and it doesn't last like other breads. Because fresh whole grain bread isn't made to last for months. That's also why when I bake, I usually make extra loaves and freeze them. If I'm already using the time and energy, I want more return on it. Just trying to be practical with the time I do have. I want to be honest here, I was trying to feel better. Even when I was making sourdough all the time, long fermenting it, I still didn't feel as energized as I wanted to after eating bread. And that wasn't good enough for me because I love bread and I wanted it to have a place in our home. So the more I learned about fresh milled flour, the more I knew I had to try it. And once we did, I was honestly blown away. The flavor is so full and deep, and it tastes like wheat the way it was meant to taste. And for me, I noticed I didn't feel sluggish after meals, and I didn't second guess that extra piece of toast with butter at dinner. And that felt pretty amazing. So for our family, this has really changed how we think about meals. It excites me to share this because it feels really discouraging to love bread but feel like it doesn't love you back. Convenience has taken us far, but sometimes stepping back and looking at how food was originally prepared brings more clarity than adding something new. Maybe it's not more complicated than that. So maybe your body isn't failing, it's just responding. Sometimes the most supportive thing we can do is stop blaming ourselves and look at what changed in the food instead. In an upcoming video, I'm going to share how this is doable in real life, including bulk baking and freezing and the tools that actually save time, because this kind of food only works if it fits into your lifestyle. And I would love to know in the comments your thoughts on this topic, if you have tried fresh milled flour, or if you would like to, or just your relationship with gluten, and maybe this is new information to you. And I'm not a pro, I'm not a professional flour miller, I am just a mom who is trying to do the best and find the best ingredients for my family. So I love to keep this going in the comment section and continue the conversation. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. Until next time, bye y'all.